Hi everyone, Comic Reviewer here. This time reviewing on Despicable Me 3. Now, as you know, Despicable Me 3 is a 2017 computer animated comedy film that was produced by Illumination, as well as being the sequel to Despicable Me 2 from 2013. Now, the premise of the film is meant to follow basically Gru and Lucy, who, after stopping Balsa Brad, who is meant to be a former child actor who became a supervillain after basically his attempts from stealing a diamond, we see how Ramsbottom is kind of replaced with a new director voiced by Jenny Slate. And I think the problem with the new director's character is that she's kind of thrown in way out of place, and it kind of feels like they just used her as a plot device to give Gru and Lucy a different motivation. So of course we see how they are kicked out of the Anti-Villain League and without a job. And I think for the most part we kind of see how Gru is kind of left with no real purpose, and you can tell he does kind of feel like a failure. You can kind of tell the minions do expect Gru to go back to villainy. We kind of see how Gru finds out from his mum that he has a long-lost twin brother who lives in a distant country known as Fredonia. And this is kind of the moment where we kind of see how Gru ends up meeting Drew. And I feel Drew's character is that he's meant to be the opposite of Gru. Well, Gru has more experience in villainy and knows how to kind of handle the situation. Drew is kind of like the opposite. He's less experienced, non-perfectionist, and kind of a screw-up. And I think for the most part, you can kind of tell Gru makes some justifiable points. Like, you can tell he doesn't really have the same villain spark as he does, and he's basically just a more weaker version of Gru. And I think for the most part, I would say, with the villain Brat, voiced by Trey Parker, I really love his character. Like, he kind of reminds me a bit of my dad, like, a bit of a 80s enthusiast, a bit more listening to old 80s songs from Physical, Bad from Michael Jackson, and so many things. And I think, well, Vector was a bit more up and coming. The villain from Despicable Me 2 was a bit of a letdown. This one, I think they do fix Brat to be at his full potential, showing him to be a more 80s enthusiast, and him sort of feeling like a complete outcast. And I think for the most part, I would say with the film, having Lucy's sub-story about being a better mum does work. You can tell she's trying to get the ropes done well. And I think for the most part, I would say the other story, when Margot ends up in an engagement with Nico, it's kind of handled a little too quickly. But again, I get it, it's meant to be a motivation to help Lucy become a better mum. And I think, well, Despicable Me 3 isn't perfect. You can kind of tell the team really do bring their A game in this. Like, not only is the film meant to have Gru trying to go back to villainy, but you can tell he's trying to do things for the right reasons. And I kind of feel with the film, I would say, has a bit of a message about that it doesn't matter if your family is a screw-up or not. It's important to still love and care about them. And I think, for the most part, I would say Despicable Me 3 is definitely an okay film. It's not perfect, but you can kind of tell they still have the same charms from the last Despicable Me films. So I think it definitely deserves a thumbs up. Still good, and still alright. And I would say, with all three films now being done and reviewed, I would say the Despicable Me films aren't perfect, but they don't hide themselves too much on a pedestal or a candle. So I think, as a series, it still deserves a thumbs up. It's got potential. It knows what it wants to be. So, comic reviewer here, signing out.